Dear learners, welcome to week 4, module 1 of the MOOC on Introduction to Distance and Digital Education. This module is on self-learning materials, that is SLMs. In the previous units of this course, we have already discussed the needs and significance of open distance and digital learning system, which is prevalent particularly in a country like India, and the various learner support services that help in reaching the unreached with the help of education. In this module or unit, we are going to discuss one of the important aspects or components of distance education through which the whole teaching learning process is running. The self-learning material is one of the important aspects of learner support services in the ODL system. So, dear friends, the main objectives of the module are to define the concept, need and importance of self-learning materials, to explain the characteristics or features of SLMs. Self-learning materials are basically learner-centered materials which are very flexible in nature. Open and distance learners usually depend on SLMs because they have to learn on their own at a time, pace and place of their own choice. With the help of the SLMs, the ODL mode makes education as accessible as possible for all, besides emerging as an effective means to bring education to the doorsteps of those who are deprived of getting educational opportunities in the conventional mode of the mainstream educational institutions. This system offers opportunities to millions of underprivileged learners, including those like the self-employed and housewives who desire for an enlightened and productive way of life. So, the questions comes, what is SLMs? Self-learning materials are those materials where the contents are designed in such a way that without taking much help from the teacher, a learner can easily grasp and understand their learning contents. While a learner goes through his or her materials, he or she may feel that someone is talking to him or guiding him or her to achieve his or her educational objectives. The activities and functions of a teacher seems to be inbuilt in the study material itself, as if the teacher is teaching in the classroom and the student is listening in his or her class. Thus, SLMs include all the materials which are prepared to stimulate independent study or learning. In the open and distance learning system, the learners have lesser opportunity to meet the tutor or teacher on regular basis than in the conventional mode, and hence they totally depend on specifically prepared teaching materials which are mostly pre-planned, pre-product and pre-packed. The SLMs are designed for the smooth running of the educational programs, and the contents of the SLMs are varied in its programs. So, SLMs provide adequate mechanism for the learners to provide feedback on the understanding of the subject. Besides, SLMs should be revised periodically from the perspective of improving quality as well as meeting the needs and requirements of the situation, so that the SLMs may provide the adequate information to the learners and upgrade their knowledge in connection with the present context. So, in this context of SLMs, materials in both print and non-print forms are to be found as like books, workbooks, worksheets, audiovisual materials, online materials, computer-based training package or computer-based materials and multimedia, etc. So, in fact, SLMs should be designed by considering the points like which are actually suggested by the Distance Education Bureau, like SLMs must contain some clearly stated objectives. SLMs should be very much user-friendly. The language should be very easy while writing SLMs to be used. One should get short, manageable chunks of learning. There should be plenty of helpful examinations in the content of the SLM. References to the learner's prior experiences should be provided. So, use of illustration where they are better than words. Headings to help learners to find their way around. Links to other media where appropriate. Obvious awareness of the needs of different learners. Exercises and activities that help the learners to use the material. Space for learners to write down their own ideas. There should be provided the sufficient space in the SLMs for the learners so that learners can write their own ideas in the SLMs. And feedback to help learners to check their own progress. So the latest policy on distance education formulated by UGC in 2017 and 2020 suggested that SLM should be printed material, audio-video material, online material and computer-based material. You can have a look at the regulation detail in the UGC website, that is www.ugc.ac.in. So you may get a clear picture actually regarding what a SLM should be consist of. So in terms of print materials, the materials should be developed in self-explanatory, self-contained, self-directed, self-motivating and self-evaluating approach. Besides, for maintaining the quality of the print materials, the policy on distance education formulated by UGC has suggested the self-learning materials should be designed with the approach of two-way communication between the learner and the content. The SLM shall involve the learners actively through various experience-based activities assignment. The learners should get clear information about the structure of the program and the course from the SLM. There shall be a detailed learning map in self-learning materials for the learner so that he or she will be self-directed for completion of his or her studies. The contents of SLM shall be developed with dialogue and personal system of writing method which will create the nature of interactivity in self-learning material. The self-learning materials shall encourage learners to apply new knowledge and skills. There shall be clear definition of the learning objectives and outcomes. The content shall be divided into small sections. It means the blocks and the subsection, this units and the sub-units for effective learning. There shall be an assignment on each learning objective for self-assessment. The learner shall be directed through problem-solving activities as applicable to the nature of the course. The learning material shall be developed in defined formats with the features like a consistent layout and format, inclusion of overview of content, a unit structure at the beginning of the unit, plenty of examples, reference to paralleling, inclusion of national or international caselets and case studies, a content in segments synchronized with the learning objectives and outcomes, explanation of icons used in the content part of the SLMs, appropriate sequence of material, explanation on technical, new, difficult terms or word in a glossary section, inclusion of adequate suggested reading, both print and online. So these things should be followed while developing a SLM for the learners. In terms of audiovisual materials, for maintaining quality standard, the policy on distance education formulated by UGC also suggested that there shall be adequate consideration of learners' prior knowledge, skills and attitudes. The level and study of language shall be appropriate. There shall be clear information on types of support materials and study activities to be used by the learner. It shall be clear and unambiguous, also preferably free from pedagogic jargon. The aim, objectives and target audience for the audiovisual materials should be clearly defined. it shall be capable of being evaluated to conform to the learning outcomes. There shall be clear guidelines with regard to the use of audio or visual materials and other contents of the course. Audio-visual materials shall be developed in forms and formats that will be easily accessible by the learners. There shall be a separate audio-visual manual for giving the guidelines of the using the audio-video material in study. There shall be synchronization of sound and image in audio-visual material. There shall be appropriate graphics and information relevant to the course content. Again, in connection with the materials provided through online form, the UGC regulation on distance education also suggested a few points like the content shall provide opportunities for learners to engage in high order thinking, critical reasoning activities and thinking in complex ways. In the online courses, there shall appropriate readability levels, written language assignments and mathematical requirements. The contents shall provide the periodical feedback about the learning process. The course shall be easy to navigate. There shall be declaration of textbooks, courseware and online resources necessary to refer additionally to complete the course. The content shall be accessible on various devices. The online materials shall satisfy the needs of the learners with disabilities. Regarding computer-based materials, for maintaining the quality standard of the material, the regulation of UGC, of Distance Education Bureau, recommended that the computer-based material shall provide an environment for practice at the learner's own pace and in his or her own time. The computer-based material shall provide an environment for self-assessment and it shall allow learners to develop analysis and decision-making skills, to discover principles and concepts for themselves. There shall be multiple learning paths for engaging the learner in active learning. The content shall provide opportunities for learners to engage in high-order thinking, critical reasoning activities, and thinking in increasing by complex ways. There shall be appropriate readability level, written language assignments, and mathematical requirements, and also it should fulfill the needs of the learners with disabilities. So, thus it has been proved that the self-learning materials should be designed in such a way that learners can easily understand the materials without much external help and support. Besides, the learners can also learn the content in details with guidance of reference or link of more reading materials which are provided in the SLM itself by the course writers in each unit. Now, the question comes into our mind whether SLMs are same as textbooks. Their answer is no. There are some major differences between SLMs and textbooks. SLMs and textbooks are the sources which help for running a course for a definite period of time. The contents and the syllabi are prepared for teaching the students by considering their mental level and also the needs and demands of a situation. The textbooks are generally made for meeting the needs of the syllabus of the students in the conventional learning, but the SLMs are specifically designed for the learners of open and distance learning system. In the SLMs, the contents and the syllabus are divided into the units, and these units are well prepared for the learners where they are totally dependent on the materials for their learning in each course or program. There are some major differences between the textbooks and SLMs, like in textbooks, it is assumed that there will develop interest among the learners, whereas in case of SLMs, it should definitely arouse the interest of the targeted group of learners. The textbooks are written for serving the purpose of research use. On the other hand, the SLMs are prepared primarily for learners' use. In textbooks, There is no indication of study time, but in SLMs there are given estimated study hours or times. In textbooks, there are rarely stated aims and objectives, whereas in the SLMs, aims and objectives are clearly stated. The textbooks are written with a target of covering a wide range of market, whereas SLMs are written or designed for a particular learner group. The textbooks are structured for the teachers and specialists, while SLMs are structured according to the needs of the learners. In textbooks, there are little or no self-assessment. On the other hand, in the SLMs, major emphasis is given on self-assessment. So, it has been found that although both the textbooks and SLMs are written for serving the educational purpose of the learners or students, there are some basic differences between the textbooks and SLMs in terms of their utilization. Thus, these kinds of educational materials should be fulfill the learning objective and interest of the learners. In the teaching learning process, the learning objectives and interests are concerned mainly to develop the three domains of the learners, that is the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. The cognitive domain involves the intellectual components of the learning objectives pertaining to the development of the mental processes like remembering, thinking, analyzing, problem solving, and so on. The affective domain reflects the emotional and attitudinal components such as development of interest, attitude, values towards certain ideas and activities. The psychomotor domain involves those objectives concerning body movement, the practical skills involved in manipulating tools, machines, or performing experiments, engaging constructions of building, and so on. So, if we look at the features of SLMs, then SLMs are the instruments for learning. In order to make the materials easy to understand on the part of the targeted learners, so that they do not require much help from the other external sources. The SLM should be designed and prepared by considering the features like it should be very much self-explanatory. The SLM should be designed in such a way that learners can understand them without external support. The content should be self-explanatory and conceptually clear. Besides the content or the structure of then it should be logically analyzed in a systematic way. The order of the writing style of the content should follow continuity and consistency. So, the SLMs promote self-learning of the learners. It must be self-contained. The SLM must be self-sufficient in nature because learners may not require the additional sources for getting an idea on a particular subject. In the ODL system, it is not always possible for a learner to meet the teacher physically due to the larger geographical boundaries, physical and psychological isolation. So, in this context, the SLMs are the only way for guiding the learners. For this reason, the units of the SLM should be visualized in detail and also they should cover all adequate information that a learner shall have to learn during his or her learning period. The SLM must be self-directed. The study material should aim at providing necessary guidance, hints and suggestions to the learners at each stage of learning. In order to make the SLM self-directed learning materials, they should contain some basic elements such as easy explanation, sequential development, illustration, learning activities, secure progress, etc. The materials perform the role of a teacher who can guide, instruct, moderate, and regulate the learning process in the classroom situation. Self-motivating. SLM should be very much self-motivating in nature. In open and distance learning system, the learners are mostly dependent on SLMs and they get a rare opportunity for face-to-face contact with the teachers. Therefore, the study materials are like a live teacher who should be highly encouraging for learners and These materials should arouse the curiosity among the learners to learn. The entire credit for creating motivation among the learners to learn goes to the course writers for making the SLMs meaningful and fruitful. The sense of reinforcement should be strengthened at every stage of learning retention. SLM must be self-evaluating in nature. Say, for making the learning effective, there should be the scope for feedback from the learners, whether they are able to grasp the study materials or not, what are the problems they are facing while studying the materials, and so on. A self-evaluation in the form of self-check questions such as check your progress, activities, exercise, etc. provide the feedback to the learners about the progress, reinforcement and motivation towards learning. Apart from the activities like check your progress, exercise in the text of SLMs or its unit, the SLM should also contain some model questions or possible questions at the end of the unit for providing feedback to the learners on their performance while they are learning a course in the audio mode. SLMs is actually a self-learning instrument. Self-learning materials are based on the principles of self-learning, where learners learn the materials without taking much help from the other external sources. Therefore, they should provide the study guide, direction, hints, references, illustration, activities, check your progress, exercise, model questions or possible questions to the learners in its unit of SLM. In fact, the SLM must be comprehensive enough so that the learners learn their own. Therefore, the SLM must be interactive in nature. For developing and preparing SLMs, the principles that we are discussed in the above must be followed to make the SLMs independent learning materials, as independent learning materials. So, dear friends, basically in this module, we have discussed the concept and importance of SLMs in detail, as self-learning material are those materials where the contents are designed in such a way that without taking much help from the teacher, a learner can easily grasp and understand their learning contents. SLMs are in different forms such as print material, audiovisual material, online material and computer-based material. Self-learning materials and textbooks are prepared for running a course for a definite period of time, but there are some major differences between them. Self-explanatory, self-contained, self-motivating, self-evaluating and self-learning are the basic features of a SLM that makes the learning material effective and interactive. So in the next module, we shall discuss on how to product SLM as well as the structure of SLM. So see you soon. Thank you.